I'm so delighted that Jenny was available because it's been a little bit concerning to me to discover, since I was in academia a decade ago when the field of labour studies was really booming in cultural and communications in general, and Jenny was already a superstar at that point in the making. There haven't been a lot of successes to this generation of scholarship, and so one of the things I wanted to make sure with this event is that we pay homage to the pioneering work of people like Jack and Jenny, Lovica Ondrijasevic, who could not join us today because of, again, time zones, and other people such as Ngai, who has been a really incredible voice and supporter of studying labour in previous iterations of cultural studies work on hardware manufacturing. And with this particular closing keynote, if you like, I was hoping to draw the connection much more clearly between these two traditions, where we have the manufacturing in the factory of hardware and physical goods, with what I think Jenny's focus is in the more recent research she's been doing on manufacturing AI itself. So just to introduce Jenny, she's an associate professor of sociology at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University and an elected vice president of the International Sociological Association's Research Committee on Labour Movements. She's the co-author with Mark Selden and Ngai of Dying for an iPhone, Apple, Foxconn, and the Lives of China's Workers, which has been translated into Korean and awarded the Choice Outstanding Academic Title regarding China 2022 and Work and Labour 2022. Her recent article, Class, Labour, Conflict and Workers' Organisation, appears in the Economic and Labour Relations Review, and she is also getting quite a lot of coverage in popular journalism for her work, which I encourage others to read, and I can share after this. So thank you so much, Jenny, for being our remote keynote here today. The floor is yours, and I'm looking forward to your talk very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I hope everyone could hear me clearly. Thank you so much for the host, Manisa, Jack, and speakers, as well as participants. I'm really honored to join you from Hong Kong virtually. So I'm going to talk about China's tech boom, labor, and mobility. By mobility or immobility, I mean first, the rural to urban migration. So it is the sense of labor migration to have the freedom to change between jobs. But the second meaning is about social mobility, upward mobility, or there's no much mobility. In the following, let me focus on two aspects. First, it is about Chinese migrant workers mainly, and a global or regional electronics production. And second, as Mel, you already nicely introduced, it is about the ongoing project about humans. They are not robots behind the AI. And finally, I would like to think a little bit on the possibility towards the collaborative efforts among academics, companies, and vocational schools. It is through the student internship program. So let me guess that China's reopened to global capitalism since the late 1970s. We had already known how IBM and other Western companies, they invest in, first of all, Japan, South Korea, and later on, they also relocate to Taiwan. And when China opens up, Hong Kong and Taiwanese investors, they are really among the first group to set up the foreign investor or the joint venture enterprise within mainland China. And this really reshaped the regional and global production network. Workers, including rural migrants, so these are the internal migrants, as well as international migrants, they are drawn into a global production network. Our t-shirt, our sport shoes, and later on, the more high-tech consumer electronics, these are what the other speaker has just mentioned, made in China. but could be designed in the Silicon Valley in the States. I would like to focus on one, the major electronics contract manufacturer in the whole world, and that is the Taiwanese corporation Foxconn, or in Taiwan, it is known as Honghai. This company is headquartered in Taipei. It operates the world's largest production base, however, not within Taiwan, but it is in China. And nowadays, it has the global production workshops everywhere. They not only produce for Apple, like we are using our Mac or our laptop to join Zoom today, but there are many other consumer electronics, notably iPhone, and there are other contracts from HP, Cisco, Sony, Huawei, and all the global brands you can name off. So Foxconn nowadays also not only focus on high-tech consumer electronics products, it is also branching out or diversifying. They are producing EVs, electric vehicles or electric cars. Foxconn climbs the global value chain, and it is diversifying its business segment. It builds the partnership with the automotive sector, particularly the EV companies as well as the battery companies. So these are just some of the partners that Foxconn had already established quite close business ties. And here you can see the image that is indeed in Ohio. But in some of the production base in China, they are also planning to have the large scale or massive production of electric cars. Here is the global map of Foxconn with the headquarters based in Taiwan, but the largest production base in China. Over the past 2 decades or so, Foxconn, just like other big foreign capital, they have been relocating part of their assembly lines in Vietnam, in India, and the Southeast Asian countries. While in the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary, the European region is another regional headquarters. And we have been reading the news headlines on how Foxconn tries to build a really huge plant in Wisconsin, in North America, but Foxconn cannot replicate the advantages like land, human resources, and all sorts of preferential policies that they have been enjoying in China over the past 4 decades or so. However, in Northern America, as well as Southern America, they do build their iPhone plants and some other production lines around EVs. What interests me, as well as Jack and our academic team, including Punai, is not much about the business empire of Foxconn per se. But in 2010, 18 young workers, one after the other, attempt suicide at Foxconn factories in China. 14 died, 4 survived, but with crippling injuries. And they are young, in the prime of youth, between 17 and 25 years old. And the safety nets really catch their lives and save lives. Instead of finding out the root cause for suicide, the management set up these safety nets or the anti-suicide nets to try to catch the jumpers. While I look into the internet, I find a poem that is written by a young migrant worker. We don't know the identity, remains as anonymous. But here it reads, the use of death is simply to testify that we were ever alive at all, and that while we lived, we had only despair. Why these young people, they seem to be very hopeful, working in the 500 global corporation in the world, but in their life, we only see desperate, hopelessness. So what happened? This then set off a long journey. I have never imagined that from my dissertation in London, and then I worked for 2 years in Oxford University before I decided to return to Hong Kong. and never imagined that the Hong Kong and mainland China relationship will becomes so tense and difficult, like what we are facing nowadays in Hong Kong. But anyhow, for the past decade or so, the two mentors quite really important in my life, including Hong Kong-based Poon Ai, as well as the historian Mark Sheldon, based in New York. We co-authored to write a book, Dying for an iPhone. You can see now the Apple iconic, their own image, right? Their logo have become a human skull. Well, even for that title, as well as the book design, internally, we have lots of discussions whether we will have any risk to take us into the court by the two world's most important corporations, and they are Apple and Foxconn. But everything we put down in our book is the truth, and we have been verifying times and times over the past decade. And we are really thankful for Jack, his trust and confidence in us. The place he puts here, the most comprehensive analysis of Foxconn, the world's largest electronics factory. And last year, we won 2 awards by choice. So this book has been also translated into Korean. And my belief is that Apple and Samsung, they are competing head-to-head. And thus, there are also researchers in South Korea. They are very interested in this book. And you can see the book cover, it is an iPhone. And with the falling petals, it symbolizes the loss of human lives. And I have been really fortunate to talk to Korean researchers as well as labor activists on the International Labor Day last year. So let me just be really quick to summarize the main theme of the book. Dying for an iPhone has a double meaning. While consumers around the globe queue up to buy the newest models, a new generation of Chinese workers, they are also struggling to assemble our iPhones. While there are so many talk about the win-win-win situation, consumers will have more choices. The companies, including Apple and Foxconn, are providing consumers with lots of choices, and workers themselves in the supplier factories, they are having higher income, better benefits. Is that true? This is a very long journey for us to put together the book and rethink globalization. Our 2 aims are to assess the extent to which the Chinese state and global tech corporations fulfill their responsibilities to protect workers in the context of transnational production. And secondly, I really wish the book writing itself is not just an academic product, but we are also public intellectual that we will involve in supporting and inspiring a new round of global labor struggles. So I've been doing undercover research. Sometimes I also borrow the staff card and put on the worker uniform and get into the Foxconn mega factories where there are dormitories, swimming pools, and even a wedding dress shop and a university. So I've been collecting the first-hand information and interviewing the officials, managers, workers, student interns, and their teachers from all over the vocational schools, which I will be talking about. But at the peak, at one point of time, Foxconn have more than 1 million workers alone in China. And that also includes the very young student interns. So this book, the data collection and analysis process take place between the rush of suicide in 2010 and until the outbreak of COVID. With the pandemic that have been widely spreading, it is also the time when we close the book, when we finish and publish it. So I want to highlight from the global production chain or global value chain perspective. That is correct. Apple and Foxconn, they are the 2 independent entities. Apple always specializes in R&D, marketing, and branding. They have the higher value add segment. The 2 companies in reality, they are closely linked in product development, engineering research, manufacturing processes, logistics and transport, sales, and after-sales services. And in fact, for many of you who have been following the news over the past decade, you are also highly aware that Apple sent its own managers stationed at Foxconn 24 hours every day, every month, and for years. So all the working conditions on the ground, Apple and other global brands, they are well aware of. But whenever it comes to production, it is the profit and delivery schedule that seems to be more important. Look at this bar chart. It gives you a sense about the uneven division of labor internationally. When you look at the bottom row, we got Apple both in terms of the revenues and the net profits. It is the most dominant and powerful or profitable tech company in the world. Samsung follow very closely. And if we now look at the top, Foxconn, their margin of profit is so thin, so slim, despite the fact that they have been able to get the orders from virtually all the global brands you can name of. So it is in this very uneven and unequal global division of labor, then we look deeper into the labor conditions. I just want to add here, even if we put down Amazon in this bar chart, the outcomes will be the same. But based on some classification, Amazon belongs to the internet services and retailing like e-commerce industry, and therefore it is not included in the bar chart. And now the pie chart will give you even a better sense. If Apple is selling at $100 US, the lion's share of the gross profits, nearly 60%, will go up to Apple's own pocket, while raw materials only constitute about 1/5 of the total cost. And now we look at the thinnest, the dark slice. That is the Chinese workers who are assembling the parts and components. They got less than 2% in terms of the gross revenue they will get in the end. And that is really divided by Foxconn and many other contract manufacturers later on. So low income, but it is more than that. The fluctuations of orders coupled with very tight delivery requirements, this really shift the production pressure from Apple to Foxconn and many other smaller suppliers along the long supply chain. So these fluctuations, the booms and bust order, there are two major implications. One, now this is quite close to the Christmas time, and workers are putting in lots of hours in doing overtime work in order to meet the production deadline. But secondly, that is more invisible, and that is the use of flexible or contingent labor just in time to produce for Apple and other products. And this really entails the whole creation of a flexible force of labor. When I traveled from Shenzhen to the inland cities, I met with these younger teenage student interns who, in the name of internship, are producing day and night of our iPhones. With the continuing global demand of iPhone and iPad, among other hot-selling gadgets, Foxconn's labor needs had been remaining quite strong, even within the pandemic lockdowns. Their assembly and production, as well as output, that have been maintaining to some extent. This group of young students, they put on the same uniforms. That is really difficult to distinguish at the beginning. But while I began to know more about the schools they are from and talk to the teachers, then I find it out. Well, this is a very important diagram. With Foxconn on the top, they can influence the provincial government's decision. In Sichuan, for example, they have termed the #1 project And the provincial governments have very deep discussion, very detailed work plans with Foxconn's HR department, and then down from the city to county and satellite city and district level, we finally get into the vocational or technical schools. This is a massive mobilization with the backup of the states, the local states across different levels in providing or supplying the student interns to Foxconn and other supplier factories. So this is well, you will say amazing, but it is also an astonishing and terrifying student labor system in China. Foxconn, with government collusion, systematically violate the letter and spirit of the law governing student intern protection. On the one hand, if vocational schools fail to meet the student quota, which is anything in a range of several hundreds to several thousands, it really depends on the size of the vocational school. But if they fail to comply with the government order, they won't receive any funding. Companies, on the other hand, like Foxconn, they extend the internship to meet production needs rather than achieving students' learning objectives. So this is a highly organized, institutionalized student labor system, which is abusive and exploitative, and that is the joint product of the company's local states and vocational schools. Student interns are the cheap labor. They are paid, the student internship are paid. However, students as the non-employees legally, that means they are not entitled to any labor insurance like work injury benefits. And assembling iPhones, schooling the schools, they are not at all related to students' majors. There's no technical skills training, no genuine learning at the workplace level. And they are also the unfree or coercive labor. In the name of internship, student interns won't graduate on time if they don't work hard. 12 hours a day, including 4 hours compulsory overtime, rotating from day to night shift. These are all the violations of the regulations that interns should only have 8 hours during the day in terms of their learning or training. And it sometimes also go within the whole month that you only have 1 to 2 days off. So in the factories, as well as I'm going to talk about the data center, which are part of the tech corporations, they are the forced labor, a modern form of slavery. So just to be really brief and quick here, there are the code of conduct, there are the labor standards that is included in year after year, the up-to-date progress report by Apple. And here you could see 2 statements. Suppliers shall only hire students to work at the supplier factories in connection with a program at an educational institution. And secondly, suppliers shall not hire students to meet its demand for workforce labor or to fill short-term gaps in labor supply. This means Apple and all other companies, they are aware of the situation. It's a mismatch between the students' majors and what they really do on the shop floor. And student interns are just a very short-term and flexible labor to keep up with the production. So they are well aware of the situation. Yes, we also welcome the fact that they put up some standards, but the key is whether you can enforce them. Apple and all other transnational, multinational corporations, they have the ethical duty to the people who manufacture their products in China, in Vietnam, in India, and all over the world. And they should really avoid the purchasing behavior that incentivizes the practices that their code of supply conduct prohibits. Sometimes we see the tensions all here. It is about the lowest cost and the fastest delivery that will compete. And then the labor codes, they seem to be just disappear and are not enforced at all. And I want to highlight with a bigger picture, vocational school have been expanding. Nowadays, China has established the world's largest vocational educational system with a total of 11,300 vocational educational schools all over, and that in total have more than 30 million students. So from school to work, this is a transitional period. Student interns now are taken in massive scale, and they are the informal labor force in electronics factories and tech companies. There are actually two levels of vocational education. At the high school level, they are not going to prepare for academic studies. These are students who finish 9 years of education, 6 years in the primary and 3 years in the middle or junior secondary school. They are about 15 million. And then those of them who decide to continue their study, they might move on to the vocational college and universities. Again, that is like more or less another half, with 14 million in total. This is a potential pool of student labor that is on massive scale. And I can give you another example. When we travel to Guizhou, there are numerous digital towns, and that again enjoy the state investment, ranging from land, human resources, and all the convenience in the name of business and vocational school cooperation. The big data center in the large company like Baidu or another smaller one, there are all these kinds of data centers. They require a lot of rural youth who got the vocational education background, and they will be taken in the name of having the internship bearing the title as the AI and big data projects. So it seems that the students' majors are a good fit, a perfect match. But in reality, when you look deeper, who are shaping the future of AI? Students from a vocational school, they interned at a local company, and the data they generate will be very useful in a variety of technological projects, from face and voice recognition to autonomous driving. But what is the content of their so-called training? Are they good career opportunities, or they remain as a very low-tech, low-skilled, short-term labor? In these data centers, actually students who also make a laugh, they are the data factories. So the blue collar and white collar lines that become very blurred, long working hours, doing all these data labeling or tagging jobs to annotate like hundreds or even up to thousands images a day, that is not learning much. These are some very low or junior basic level of skills, but data annotation does use human eyes and the brains in coordination. We are labeling, these are the pedestrians, they are the motorbike, these are the traffic light. And their job titles are indeed quite decent. They are called as the data annotators or AI trainers, and they are feeding the data to train the machines, the algorithmic models in self-driving car technology. But are we really cultivating young talents? Are they having the chance to upskill? These are the testimonies of some young student interns who are working day and night in the data center. My brain feels stiff and rusty. My eyes hurt. My back pain hurts because we are staring at the computer all day. I am, in the end, only a factory worker in AI. These are all the tedious and repetitive labor. So inside the AI factory, what kinds of digital jobs are we envisioning? Are digital skills utilized among the better educated youth who have the vocational school background? So good educational policies, poverty alleviation, rural revitalization, and youth employment, all these different schemes, we really have to put it into a priority. More specifically, I do refer to the well-designed and value-add curriculum that could really combine theory into practices. And ultimately, we have to ensure that student interns, just like their co-workers, they should have fair pay or the decent reward. To just conclude, the Chinese government must strengthen national laws to protect employees and student interns in smart manufacturing and digitalization. And the global brands, supply factories, as well as tech companies, they should ensure workers' right to work. They have the freedom to work, and they also have the autonomy to resign from the so-called internship that is indeed a fake internship, that is just wasting their time, and that would be indeed a generational impact that their rural parents really want them to have the bright future, but it's just end up in ruin their future. And in terms of health and safety, there are also some implications. Finally, right here, I'm really fortunate to have the opportunity to talk here, and I hope we, the researchers, would join hands to set up collaborative projects that we could facilitate useful skills training and knowledge transfer, so that we are empowering a new generation of students and graduates, and they will contribute to sustainable global development. And I do see the collaboration between vocational schools and enterprises. If the programs are good, if the skills appraisal schemes are put in place, that would potentially really benefit the employment of the young students in the very competitive job markets in China and elsewhere. So I do hope that these are the really valuable field sites on the ground research. And thank you very much for everyone for your kind attention. If you have any comments or discussions, particularly this is an ongoing project, you are most welcome. So now I will stop sharing and join you.